Welcome everyone to one more episode of Straightforward. Super excited to be here today with Gavin Adgley, who runs the value acceleration the initiatives at Databricks. So we're going to be talking a lot about data today and data initiatives and how to make this a success. So welcome, Gavin.
Thank you so much. Yeah, happy to be with you, Bruno.
Thank you to be here. So the topic that we picked and get into the nature of the show here, like what like everybody wants to do those nice things. The show here is all about again, once you decide to do those things, how actually do it, right? So data is such a huge topic, and we're very excited. We're partners. We've been such a lot of things together. But I wanted to hear from you. You're very on the front lines there with clients and Databricks. So maybe if you can talk about a little bit of what are the things you think, like what the things that you wanted to your clients to know that they kind of they don't know yet, or they should prepare when they're starting their journeys towards data and to kind of create value through data. What do you think that they should know that is not out there already, that's not all over the internet?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question to start off the conversation. I think it's worth kind of diving into it by framing this as it's a really exciting space. When you're thinking about data, when you think about artificial intelligence, there's so much momentum and excitement behind the potential of the technology. I'd say that a lot of the customers that end up approaching Databricks come at it from the technology perspective. They've worked with other technologies in the data analytics space, or that sometimes they're embarking for the first time and they really want to kind of understand the technology edge, and that's usually the stepping off point. And Databricks helps customers that start from that starting point. I think it's a really common path. But the role that Mike plays is actually to help make a link between the work of technology teams and the broader business purpose that technology can serve. And it might not be immediately obvious that that's a important thing to cover. Sometimes at Databricks we'll work with these digital native companies that have huge established engineering organizations, and in that scenario, engineering often has a lot of freedom to chase down whatever technology investment is required to get the job done, because it's just a known fact that is a data business. But in other cases where you have enterprises that have established or growing data science and analytics practices, it's not always quite so obvious the role that technology can play in linking through to the strategic objectives of that organization. And so there it's a little bit of a discovery process. There's a bit of matching between the technology and the impact. But we found that when we do that effectively, it leads to a whole heap of really good outcomes, whether it's personally for the data practitioner in terms of the impact they're able to make within their organization. It helps in fostering connections with those different parts of the business that really rely on technology to do their jobs. And there are a whole host of reasons to do it. But I guess in answer to your question, the kind of thing that we'd want the listeners to get familiar with and understand is just the importance of linking through to the broader business purpose that their organization is serving with data, in order to make a really compelling case for change, because that's really often what we're talking about here: change through technology.
And it's and I guess the challenges are very different from the digital natives to the traditional companies trying to understand and actually the correct value on those journeys, right? So let's focus a little bit on the traditional business on how. So there's always also the trap to promise too much, right? In terms of we're talking about AI and all the magical things, and then you have to reconcile. Those are long journeys, as we know, and there's always the risk of promising too much and not being able to deliver in the short term, to actually keep the energy alive, to actually keep funding and keep progressing and investing to reach that kind of nirvana, right? So how do you see that kind of playing out in the field? Like, well, what are the tips that you can share here, like how to articulate and to kind of put that strategy together, so you kind of you're aiming high, but kind of still not running into the risk of being left on the midway to with no food or fuel.
I think in what you described there, Bruno, it's really common for leaders of data teams to be a little bit cautious when it comes to quantifying the broad impact that their work can make on an organization, and for a few really good reasons. It can feel strange to be quantifying value to areas outside of engineering or outside of IT. The numbers can end up really large, especially with really transformative artificial intelligence. The numbers can get really big, and then you start to get the question: oof, will I be held accountable for delivering that number? And the challenge there, of course, is that there are lots of factors that contribute to the ability to deliver on that value, some of which are in your control and some of them are actually outside of your control. And so I think those concerns are really legitimate. But the caution that I would play out here is that while it can be scary putting forward a big number, it can actually do you a real disservice if you put forward a number that's too small or no number at all. And the reason I say that is especially when you're making larger investments or doing more transformational work, you start to connect with leaders in your organization that don't necessarily speak the language of the technology. They're not necessarily, a CIO, a CTO, a CFO. They're not going to understand why it's really important to, have the Photon query engine, pushing through queries really quickly and at really, cost performance rates because of all these really technical reasons. Instead, they speak the language of, what is the quantifiable impact of the things that we could pursue? And they're able to, these executives are able to prioritize and compare various things that are going on based on the dollar value ascribed to it. And so I guess the approach here, and this is especially in large organizations, traditional organizations, as opposed to digital natives, it's often really important to make a clear link between the technology choice and the change you're driving with technology and that broader impact on the strategic objectives. Got it. And any tips for how to do this in terms of I understand you have to have that kind of a the North Star that's actually that probably helping you build a business case and get resources and rally around that goal. Mm-hmm. But how do you actually reconcile that with short-term wins to actually keep sustaining the fuel to yeah, right? And at least for us, what we try to do is create a North Star, but not make it a kind of create a sense of false certainty. Because maybe in the space we are, we were using a lot of data to kind of as a just-in-time intelligence into digital experiences, right? So data as a form of improve commerce, e-commerce experience or engagement experiences, and data is kind of very fluid, used to help improve those customer experiences. And as you said, there are a lot of hypotheses there, right? So it's one thing to use data to improve internal processes where you have all control or have all the purview of what you're doing, and you have the more certainty that you can get to a different level of performance. It's a different thing when you kind of do those things and we help. We hope that there will be a different response from clients and customers, and will increase top line based on those hypotheses. So it's way more unpredictable, right? So so how do you actually kind of what you're seeing were good examples or good strategies or tactics that kind of help bridge the gap between the kind of nirvana and the short-term goals there. That'll be really I think insightful for people here. I think your point, Bruno, was a really good one around essentially the need to communicate some uncertainty. I think that you actually earn a lot of credibility with these business audiences if you call out, for example, tactically speaking, a range of benefits. If there's an upper and lower limit and a communication of, what are the dependencies that indicate where within that range the value is likely to fall, it kind of helps to navigate and make sure that it's not communicating a false sense of certainty around specific numbers. But if I think more broadly about the way that these value cases typically come together, it all starts with an understanding of the why. Why do we actually need to communicate the impact of the work that we're doing as a data team? And the answer to the why question actually differs based on where a company is in its data and AI journey. If you're very early in the journey and just getting started, it's really important to paint a picture of the potential and to paint a really clear picture of the first steps that will get you closer to that vision, but might have a more modest impact. As you're kind of midway through the journey, we find it's really important to look backwards and tell the story of the impact that's already been made, and then to cast a picture towards the future. And then as you start to get on the top end, you've got a really mature, data and AI practice. You've driven a lot of this change. Inevitably, the cost of such a platform and the cost of the operations of it end up reasonably high. So the burden of proof is also really high to ensure that the value is linked really closely to that spend. So there's kind of a few different ways of thinking about it, different kind of methods, and kind of different levels of accuracy and scrutiny you need depending on where you are in that journey.
Yeah, I love the start of the why, right? It's like unfortunately we have so many clients coming to us like, hey, we want to build this beautiful data platform, data lake, and all nuts and bolts, really cool. 127 data sets integrated, and it would be great, right? So, and then we ask why. What do you need that for? Because that's going to cost a lot of money.
Yes,
and then and then see that they're sometimes they're in there just they're doing this because it's data is such a hot and promising trendy topic, and everybody's doing it, and they have their own plans and strategy, but they're not attached to a kind of a business impact vision, right? So and that kind of very hard. Like, and when we start asking those questions, we kind of realize, hey, yeah, we may have kind of this beautiful plan of like long term, many multi years that are super impactful. But we don't need to start with 127 data sets. Maybe what about we start with those 7 here and deliver this exactly, business impact to whatever area, and we show the value, right? We show somewhat that potential, and hopefully people will rally behind it, and keep that with the energy and the resources to actually achieve that kind of a very high potential in the future. But if you start
exactly
the vision and waiting that we'll build and they will come type of mentality, then it's a very risky business, I guess.
I would agree. We hear that build it, they will come thinking all too often, unfortunately. And I think the stepping off point from there is often, okay, but which is the first group you're expecting to get benefits from this data platform? What are the problems they'll be solving? And the reason is not to say this will 100% be the exact team that drives all the value, but even just bring to life an example for those folks outside of IT who are looking at an investment in this new technology and you're feeling a little bit unsure about it. That example can help it bring it to life. And I'd even say there's an example as you were speaking, Bruno. There was an example of this. I encountered this in the last week, and it kind of points to this message that building this story around the link between technology and the impact on the business, it's an ongoing journey. There was one customer I was working with about a year ago. We built this. They're probably medium in terms of halfway through their data journey, and we built a strong value case around a few really high impact use cases that have delivered value historically, painted the picture of what's to come. And then fast forward a year, and that we now have the CIO's real focused attention. And the question that he asked us was, if the Library of Congress's data set, all of the information in the Library of Congress only comes to a few terabytes, why is our data lake 12 terabytes? And it was a really interesting way to frame the question. But I mean, I thought a few things. The first thing I thought was, this is brilliant that we have the attention of the CIO. He's really invested in understanding where is he getting the bang for his buck. He wants to understand this data platform. And then the second piece is, if they're asking that kind of question, it makes me think, is this CIO looking for cost savings? Does this CIO, and which a lot of folks are in this changing economic climate, but more importantly, does the CIO understand the impact that this data platform is making, how it contributes towards the broader vision? And in this case, it was around customer 360 vision, and using data to great effect across the organization, driving this great cultural change. If that CIO really understands that link, then the question around why is this data lake so big kind of falls away, given the amount of impact it can drive, and that's really, really important.
And most times there's a performance of cost and value creation there, right? So
Yes.
As long as they're balanced, right?
Exactly. And I think,
Yeah, go ahead.
just to emphasize that, data practitioners often really focus on the cost savings, like the cost of one technology versus another. And I agree that that's a really important part of the equation. It's just not the whole picture. If you can make a case that there's a cost saving to be had, or a consolidation of your systems, great. That's an argument to make this change. But with transformative technologies like the ones that we collectively work in day out, there's a really exciting story to tell about growth, or cost savings elsewhere in the organization, or reducing risk. And uncovering that story is often the difference between great leadership support of big transformational change, or a lackluster program that doesn't live up to its potential.
Yeah, that's our experience as well. The ones that are the data initiatives that are driven by value creation are usually more successful than ones that's just kind of consolidation, cost cutting, because usually there's a lot of they're overestimated what the amount of a cost cutting that you can get, and then kind of get frustrated in the end. Maybe it didn't was worth the amount of effort that was put in there just kind of to consolidate and reduce. Mainly of the cost hopeless that was there, maybe on the cloud migration, the fuel part of that kind of expectation that we know right now that's not living up to their expectations. So I think they're.
And if you were to combine, two of the things that you just described, the just focusing on cost savings and thinking that if we build it, they will come. If you combine those two pieces, it's a recipe for disaster. And I don't mean to say that so that folks over-index and build out huge multi-million-dollar value cases that are, I don't know, bigger than Ben-Hur. But if you can, even at that early stage, articulate, here is an example of the kind of problem we can solve that we couldn't solve before, it'll really help bring these things to life. So I would, I think you're hitting on a few of the points that we encounter really often. And if you think about them in advance, it can just unlock so much potential towards the future.
Well, that's a great tip for the audience here, for anyone kind of willing to kind of start that journey or revamp their journey. So that I've seen so many plans that are articulate, the people that are running them, they know, and they know the value that's about to be created, but they also know that's very uncertain, and sometimes they don't want to promise that. And so they kind of they build their business case, and they articulate the value of it on a cost basis, right? And then it kind of they keep it under their sleeve, the value creation. But as we're discussing here, if you keep it under your sleeve, then it will be very hard to actually mobilize the organization and actually make it happen in the end of the day. So
exactly. I think the way we often think about that when we communicate what is typically involved in a value case that makes that link between the technology and the business, there are just three parts. There's the infrastructure savings impact, which is the TCO savings that we're talking about here. The next piece is the developer experience and the productivity impact on data teams. And then the final part is how are we actually impacting the business itself. And so I find that, especially for folks that are new to this world, it's often communicating the cost saving. The bottom piece of that equation is easiest. To break further forward and kind of move upwards and think about, if we have a data team of 30, 50, 2,000 people, and they can move significantly faster, then there's this really exciting story to tell around the new problems that they can tackle, or the improvement in data quality and the improvement in the output of the existing things they're doing. There are so many things you can really kind of jump into easily if you can make a really strong case around increasing output and speed. And then once you've got those elements established, then you link through to the business problems. What new business problems could we solve that we couldn't solve? Can we now solve that we couldn't before? Or what can we now do faster or at lower risk? And so that kind of framework, especially for folks that are listening on this podcast, like, I kind of get why this is important, but where do I start? I'd say, start with where you're comfortable. Talk about that cost saving, but really ask those harder questions to make a link to the bigger picture.
Great. That's great. Great advice. Kevin, any kind of a final words, like anything else there that you think like, hey, this is some must, like you need to know this before you gotta starting that journey. Like, please don't do that before reading this instruction manual. Like,
it's tricky because I'm not sure there's entirely a written out instruction manual to follow to the letter. But I think that the key message here is that you're not alone. The partners that you work with to deliver on this technology vision are here to help with these kind of things. If you from this podcast have thought, you know what, I really understand why this is important, great. Reach out to our collective companies and ask for help with these things, because our success is your success. So we're here to help get these things right.
Gavin, thank you so much for your kindness of sharing your experience and wisdom here with the audience. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can see each other soon.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, Bruno.
Thank you. Bye-bye.